Have you ever wondered how one nation could stand up against the world's greatest empires and win time and time again? It's a really compelling puzzle, so let's break down the incredible story of Vietnam's resistance.
I mean, this is the core question, right? Think about it. The Mongol Empire at its absolute peak, the massive French colonial machine, and the unbelievable technological might of the United States. How did they all fail to conquer Vietnam? Well, the answer is this powerful combination of factors that we're about to explore.
Just take a second and look at this timeline. This isn't about one war. We're talking about a 2,000-year saga of struggle for independence, a full millennia of Chinese rule, then fending off the Mongol hordes, and then, of course, the modern conflicts with France and America. This history of resistance, it's literally baked into their national identity. So how do we even begin to understand this incredible resilience? Well, it starts with the ground beneath their feet, the land itself. For any invading army, Vietnam's geography was a formidable enemy before they even met a single soldier.
It's basically a natural fortress. You've got this thick jungle that's almost impossible for planes to see through, steep mountains that are impassable for heavy equipment, and then you have monsoon seasons that turn everything into mud. It's a complete nightmare for a conventional army.
This terrain was the great equalizer. An invader's biggest advantages, things like air power and long-range artillery, were pretty much rendered useless. I mean, you can't bomb what you can't see, and that jungle provided the perfect cover. Get this number, 90%. Imagine trying to command a modern army where 9/10 of the terrain is mountainous. It was this massive strategic barrier that completely shaped every single conflict that was ever fought there. Okay, so if the land is your fortress, how do you fight? Well, this is where it gets really brilliant. It brings us to their incredibly adaptive military strategy. The Vietnamese fought smarter, and in doing so, they completely rewrote the rules of engagement. This quote from Ho Chi Minh is really the heart of their whole philosophy. You don't meet strength with strength. No way. You become this constant, draining presence. The goal was never one decisive battle, but a war of 1,000 cuts, designed to wear down the enemy's body and, crucially, their spirit. And this became what's known as the People's War Doctrine. It wasn't just about soldiers. It meant mobilizing the entire society. You had farmers hiding weapons caches in rice paddies, children acting as lookouts. The entire country became the battlefield. The whole purpose was to make the occupation so costly, so exhausting, that the enemy would eventually just go home.
And it was incredibly methodical. Phase 1, start small, build support, and harass them. Phase 2, you escalate attacks, liberate more territory. And the final phase, only when the enemy is weak, you switch to large-scale battles for the final blow. This chart brilliantly illustrates the core mismatch here. Invaders came to fight a military war. The Vietnamese were fighting a political war. Their target wasn't the enemy's soldiers, but their will to fight back home. It was like they were playing two completely different games on the very same board.
And here's a perfect example of their tactical genius. How do you defeat overwhelming air power? You hug the enemy. By fighting at extremely close range, they made it impossible for the Americans to call in airstrikes without risking hitting their own troops. They literally turned the enemy's greatest strength into a liability. So clever.
But look, terrain and strategy. They aren't enough on their own. The final and maybe the most important piece of this puzzle is the culture, an unshakable national will forged over centuries of fighting for survival and independence.
Let's go way back to 40 CE. While Rome was ruling its empire, two Vietnamese sisters, Trung Chuc and Trung Nhi, led a massive army against Chinese rule. They are the foundational figures of Vietnamese resistance, and their story really sets the stage for everything that comes after.
And they aren't just some historical footnotes. They're revered as eternal symbols. This isn't ancient history. It's a living part of the national identity. In fact, this very story was invoked centuries later to inspire soldiers fighting the French and the Americans. It's a constant reminder that resistance is a core Vietnamese value. And their legacy is everywhere today. You see it in holidays, in temples and statues, and it's taught to every single schoolchild. A major district in the capital city is named after them. This story keeps that spirit of resistance alive through generations.
Okay, so you have the land as a fortress, a brilliant playbook for war, and an unshakable will forged in history. So now, let's see how these elements combine to create a formula for success that worked again and again.
Across the centuries, you see the same patterns emerge: strategic patience, a willingness to fight for generations, not just years, constant innovation, like hugging the enemy, mastering the terrain, and always focusing the fight on the enemy's political will to continue.
This chart shows how each major power fell into the exact same trap. The French at Dien Bien Phu never believed the Vietnamese could haul artillery up mountainsides. The Mongols never anticipated the stake trap that destroyed their fleet. And the US believed technology could win, failing to grasp its limits in the jungle. See the pattern? They all underestimated their opponent.
It all boils down to an imbalance of will. For the Vietnamese, it was a battle for their very existence. For the invaders, it was a war of choice. And in a long, protracted conflict, the side fighting for survival will always be willing to pay a higher price.
And that leaves us with a final, powerful thought. The story of Vietnam really makes you ask, what are the true limits of military power when it comes up against the human will to be free? It proves that no amount of technology or force can ultimately defeat a unified people determined to live free.